Hey friends, so in the last video what we learned was we cleaned our view controller by creating a recipe item view model and also created a bind method in the recipe table view cell. And in this video we will start with the concept of dependency injection. So I'll give you a very brief overview what dependency injection is. So in programming, most of the classes will have dependency on some external resources. So for example, our repository is dependent on the networking manager, and our recipes view model is dependent on the recipe repositories, and our view controller is dependent on recipes view model. So each of these has a dependency to some other external class or another class basically. And if you see that we are initializing the view model in the view controller right away, and similarly we are initializing the repository in the recipes view model right away, and then in the recipe repositories we are just directly using the shared instance of the networking manager. But in production apps, whenever we have any instances of some other classes in our code, what we do is we try to inject them. And by inject them, what I mean is that we try to pass those dependencies or those I'll say the objects of those external classes or other classes into our class through the initializer. So I'll start by injecting the networking manager into our recipe repositories, and then we will move backward from repositories to view model and then view model to controller. So how we will do that is we will create an initializer which will take a networking manager, which will be of type networking manager, and then we will create a private property here which we will name it as HTTP, and this will also be of type networking manager. And here what we'll do is we'll do self.http networking manager, and instead of using this whole networking manager dot shared, we will simply use HTTP. So now if we try to compile it, you will see that the build has failed. So to resolve this issue, we will go where the error is, and we'll see that the repository is complaining that it is missing an argument. And if we try to fix it, it will ask for networking manager. So there are multiple ways to solve this. One way is we can directly do networking manager dot shared, and this will resolve it. But we want to fix this issue of injecting repository into the view model as well. So what we will do is, instead of directly initializing it, we will create an object of type repository, recipe repositories, and again create an initializer which will take recipe repository, and we'll do self dot repo equals to recipe repository, and again the build will fail, and this will now happen in view controller. And we will do a similar thing here. We will inject the view model and create the initializer with recipes view model, and do self dot recipes view model equals to recipes view model. And now again we have another error. So this error is basically every view controller requires this initializer, which takes the coder and its coder. So this initializer is usually required if you are using storyboards, but we are not using storyboards, but we still need to implement it. And then we have to do super init with nib name nil. Now the build has succeeded. So let's try running this. And you see that this is failing here right now. So to resolve this error, what we have to do is we have to convert our app from using storyboards as the starting point to completely using our view controller directly. So to do that, we will go into our scene delegate, and here we will initialize our view controller. So let's first create our window, do window scene, and then we will initialize the window object with the scene. So this window object is the one that is being declared here. Then we'll do window dot root view controller equals to UI navigation controller, and our root view controller will be the recipes view controller, but it takes a view model, right? So we have to do all the dependency injection from here. So let's do this. So now this one needs a recipes view model, and this one needs a recipes repository, and this one needs a networking manager. So we can start doing here, then pass the repository to this one and pass the view model to view controller, and let's try running this up, and then pass the view controller. And one thing also we have to do is we have to make key invisible, so this will put this window in front of anything and see what error we are getting. So it's again trying to initialize with the initializer that uses storyboard. So for that, what we have to do is go to our project, in select targets, delete the storyboard from here, and also then go to info plist, and then we will have application scene manifest, scene configurations, and delete the storyboard from here. Now let's try running this again. So now you see that the application is running. So I'll go through what I have done again one more time. So first, what we did was, in the repository, we injected the networking manager, and then in the view model, we injected the repository, and in the view controller, we injected the view model. And all this setup, we eventually did it in the scene delegate, where we created the repository that is taking the networking manager, and then the view model that is taking the repository, and then we created the view controller that is taking the view model, and then initialized our window with our root view controller for our view controller inside a navigation controller. And then we deleted our storyboard settings from the info plist file and in the targets of our recipes app. So this is a lot of setup to begin with, but eventually you will see the benefit of this dependency injection when we get to unit testing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We will cover about dependency injection again a little bit later, and we will introduce another concept of protocol oriented programming. I'll explain you what that is as well. But for the time being, whatever external classes that we are using within our class, we are injecting it rather through the initializer rather than initializing it within the class. So that's the simplest form of dependency injection. So thank you. I'll see you in the next video.